Hey there, beautiful souls. I'm really glad you're here with me today. Because if you're listening to this, there's a good chance your heart is carrying a weight that words don't easily describe. A weight that comes from one of the most bittersweet experiences we can have, the pain of almost. You know what I'm talking about. That almost relationship that lingered in the space between friendship and something more. The one where you felt the connection, the spark, the hope, but somehow it never fully bloomed. Almost in love, almost together, almost forever. It's the love story that felt like it was this close to being everything you ever dreamed of, but instead, it slipped through your fingers like sand. And no matter how hard you tried to hold on, it just wasn't enough. Maybe it was the wrong timing, or maybe the person wasn't ready, or maybe you both were perfect for each other, just not in the way you hoped. And that kind of heartbreak can be the hardest to heal from. Because when something is almost yours, you're left wondering what could have been. It's like living in a shadow of what-ifs. But here's the thing I want to share with you today. Even in the pain of almost, there's a purpose. Even when it feels like God let something beautiful slip away, He's still writing a story that's better than the one you imagined. So let's talk about it. Let's sit in this space together and unpack what almost really means, and how God uses those moments to shape our hearts, our faith, and our future. Almost is such a tricky word, isn't it? It carries this weight that's hard to shake off. It's not like a clear-cut ending where things are black and white. Almost lives in the gray area. It's not a full rejection, but it's not acceptance either. It's that in-between space where hope lingers a little too long, and you're left wondering if maybe, just maybe, things could have turned out differently. Maybe you've been there. Maybe you met someone who felt like the one. The conversations were deep, the chemistry undeniable, the connection real. You could see a future together. You wanted that future. But for whatever reason, it didn't happen. Maybe it was distance, timing, life circumstances, or maybe they just didn't feel the same way. And here's the truth that's hard to swallow. Sometimes the right person at the wrong time is still the wrong person. I know that hurts to hear. But love isn't just about finding someone who fits. It's about finding someone who fits and is ready to grow with you. Someone whose heart aligns with yours in the way God designed. When we experience almost love, it's easy to spiral into questioning ourselves. Was I not good enough? Did I do something wrong? What if I had just tried harder? But let me remind you of something important. Your worth is not defined by someone else's inability to love you the way you deserve. Your value doesn't diminish just because someone couldn't see it or wasn't ready to receive it. And as painful as it is, sometimes God allows these almost relationships to enter our lives. Not to break us, but to build us, to teach us, to prepare us for something greater. It's in these moments of almost that we have to trust in God's timing more than ever. I know that sounds cliché, but it's true. Because when you're standing in the wreckage of a love that nearly was, it's hard to see how any good could come from it. But God sees the full picture. He knows what's around the corner. The Bible tells us in Ecclesiastes 3:1, "There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens." That includes love and relationships that didn't work out. Sometimes we're so focused on what we lost that we forget to see what God is protecting us from. Maybe that almost relationship was keeping you from the person God truly has for you. Maybe it was a lesson in setting boundaries, in learning to love yourself more, or in deepening your faith. Sometimes, God closes a door because He knows what's on the other side isn't what's best for you, even if it feels perfect right now. It's hard to accept, I know. But faith means trusting God not just when things go the way we want, but especially when they don't. Faith is believing that even in the heartbreak, God is working behind the scenes, weaving together a story that's more beautiful than anything we could have written ourselves. Think about the story of Ruth in the Bible. She faced immense loss. Her husband died, and she was left in a foreign land with no clear future. But Ruth didn't let her almost define her. She stayed faithful, trusting that God had a plan, and guess what? He did. Ruth's story didn't end in loss. It ended in love, redemption, and becoming part of the lineage of Jesus. Your story isn't over yet either. So, how do you heal from almost? How do you let go of the what-ifs and the lingering hope? First, you give yourself permission to grieve. Just because it wasn't an official relationship or because it didn't last long doesn't mean your feelings aren't valid. Your heart was loved and your soul was connected. It's okay to feel the loss of what could have been. But after you've grieved, you start to release it. You start to trust that if something didn't work out, it's because God has something better in store. You pray for peace. You pray for understanding. And you ask God to fill the spaces that almost left behind. Remember, God's plans for you are good. Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." That future doesn't include almost love. It includes real, deep, lasting love. The kind that's rooted in His timing, His purpose, and His grace. And as you wait for that love, don't forget to love yourself in the process. You are worthy of the kind of love that doesn't leave you guessing. You deserve someone who chooses you fully, not just almost. So to anyone out there sitting in the pain of almost, I want you to know this: you are not alone. God sees your broken heart. He feels your pain, and He's holding you through it all. But this isn't the end of your story. It's just a chapter, and the next chapter? It's going to be filled with more love, more joy, and more purpose than you can imagine. Don't be afraid to let go of what almost was, because when you release what wasn't meant for you, you make space for what is. So take a deep breath, trust God's timing, and know that the love you've been waiting for is on its way. Not almost, but exactly right. And until that day comes, keep your heart open, your faith strong, and remember, the best is yet to come.